thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson-Miller. And again, yes, we are talking about COVID. Continues to be big news, especially the COVID vaccine and what we're doing in terms of preparing to immunize our people with that vaccine. So joining me in this segment of the program, we have Dr. Chris Tufton. Later in the program, we'll hear from the opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Maurice Guy, and then an immunology expert, Dr. Landis, will be joining us as well. So lots and lots of discussion for you this evening. Thank you so much for talking to us again, Dr. Tufton. We always appreciate it.
Hi, good evening to you and to your listeners and viewers.
So news today that the expected arrival of the vaccines from India that we had expected on the 4th, now been delayed to the 8th. And of course, let's hasten to say this is a gift from India. So, you know, we're glad for it anytime it comes. But it does seem at this point, Dr. Tufton, that we're behind in the vaccination stakes when we look at what's happening around us in the Caribbean. Isn't that a fair assessment?
No, because the Caribbean region has only gotten vaccines via the gift, and there are still a number of them who still are yet to get. Certainly, because of the nature of the pandemic, we would all like to have vaccinated the entire population long ago, but it is a function of some of the realities that we face, availability. If you look at global vaccination, I looked at it 2 days ago, only just over 3% of the world's population has received vaccines. So, you know, we would like to have started before. There's no doubt about that. But I think we have managed the process to this point. And I think when we start, you will see the pace increase in the months to come. And what we need is the take-up of the population.
Is there an issue, though, in terms of our interstate relationships? Because, again, even looking at the gifts, Barbados received 100,000 doses from India. We saw Ghana getting 20,000 from China, another 80,000 from India. And these are countries with whom Jamaica has normally had good relationships. So have we been falling down on the diplomacy front?
I don't think so. I mean, listen, I can't speak for other countries. I don't think it's my place so to do. I can speak for Jamaica, and as far as I'm concerned, we have worked very closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. As far as I know, we enjoy excellent relations with all these countries, and the discussions have been cordial. The scheduling were a function of those discussions. Remember, I had said some time ago that we prefer to accept vaccines that were WHO approved, and I suspect some of the timing may have been impacted by that, in that some of those countries may have gotten vaccines that are yet to be approved or were approved after they received it. So it's not a commentary on those countries and their relationships, and I don't want it to be interpreted as any negative commentary on the relationship that we have with other countries or with those specific countries.
Yeah, I've heard this explanation from you before, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about it, that we've only accepted vaccines once they're WHO approved. But isn't there, what are the criticisms has been, though, that what people were doing had been getting in line while the approval process is pending, knowing that all of that takes a little bit of time. And Jamaica seems to have stood back and said, okay, tell us when we get the green light, by which time, if you excuse the metaphor, everybody else was already out of the starting blocks.
Right. So no, because we accepted that generous offer by India long before the WHO approval. And as I had said to you, not to comment on other countries' relations with India. But their arrival of vaccines came in before the WHO's approval. So they may have accepted at the same time and chose to bring it in before. We, through friendly discussions, accepted after approval. And, you know, I'm sure India's generosity extends to many countries around the world. And it is a gift, as you have said, and they are scheduling issues. And, you know, I don't think a couple of days will make a big difference, to be totally frank. And it will be put to good use when it comes, because it gives us time to prepare also.
So at this point, how confident are we that the COVAX shipment is going to come in when it's supposed to come in, given that we've already seen a delay in that because we had been told mid-February for that?
Right. So the 14,400 vaccines are in place to be shipped. The only issue around the possibility of delay would be the logistics, the movement of the shipment. Now, I got correspondence today which outlined the route that it would take in terms of the carrier, where it would stop, where it would start, and the expected date of arrival. Now, and you and I know you have traveled as I have. You could book a flight for X time, and because of weather or whatever, there are changes. But as of now, I am very confident that it is there. It is to come. The only delay that could create a challenge is if the movement of it was delayed for whatever reason beyond our control. And that is the initial shipment. The rest of it now is a function of availability of manufacturing. But there's a commitment that we will get that within a particular period of time. And we're hoping that production will increase over time to ensure that those deadlines are met or dates are met.
So Covaxin, as far as you know, right now you're saying that's on schedule. So you're pretty sure.
Well, to be totally frank, COVAX is off schedule already because remember now I went to Parliament and said February, we're in March. But
yes,
the first offer is on schedule for the 11th.
Okay, and that's what I mean. So you're pretty confident about that,
yes,
that latest date.
Right.
Okay. Now, those two together, they will still only come to about 64,000 or so, if my maths is correct. So it's really the subsequent shipments that are going to be able to allow us to vaccinate a significant proportion of our population. The 1.8 million doses now that we're talking about from the Africa platform, that is really going to be the huge amount that adds to the other smaller amounts. What's the kind of time frame you're looking at for that? We hear 1.8 million, but how much of it is front loaded as opposed to being kind of driven?
So the schedule in the vaccine plan projects by the end of May to have just under 1 million doses, and a portion of that is expected from the African platform. Now, I will say, even though we don't give details, that we are discussing other possible options for arrival before that time. But I'm not willing to comment publicly on it until we have a contract in hand and we have higher levels of certainty, because as you can see, this is a very uncertain, imperfect marketplace because of demand issues and supply issues. But I think that we should be able to meet the deadline for end of May for the million or just under 1 million. And part of that would be the African platform. Part of that would be COVAX. And there are one or two other areas that we're looking into. I am not, if I may, not so much concerned. And in fact, I am satisfied with that number during that period of time, because the delivery of the vaccine from inventory into the arms of individuals is another set of challenge, which I know you have been commenting on a lot. And the truth is, we can't afford to get all 3 million one time, because the chances of what would likely happen is that you're going to have logistic issues to deliver, and you probably could waste the vaccine. So we have to schedule it over time in order to be able to to deal with the capacity issues to get it into the arms of Jamaicans.
And on that, the time frame as announced in the plan, we're still looking at about the first quarter of next year for full vaccination. Any chance of accelerating that time frame, though?
There's always the possibility, but we were careful to try and be as conservative as possible. Already, it is a challenge because, as you would know, the public health system on its own is not likely to be able to deliver the numbers. And so we have to coordinate around other non-governmental organizations or other agencies not directly linked to public health, like the Army, private sector doctors, volunteers, that sort of thing. And so a lot is going to depend on the willingness of those who can, based on technical competencies or otherwise, to get involved in the process. That discussion is going on in many quarters, but you really can't say for certain how it will turn out in its absolute terms, which is why I think it is safer to go conservatively in order to ensure that we meet the targets that we set.
Yeah, I've also been critical before of our logistics planning. I was speaking to the PS earlier on the radio, and he was saying it's a JDF, in fact, that's going to be in charge of logistics, certainly at the mass vaccination sites. Are you comfortable at this point? Because you made a point of saying we need to stretch out the distribution to ensure that, essentially we don't have chaos. Are you comfortable at this point with the arrangements that you're putting in place?
Dion, I am comfortable based on what I've seen. I cannot say with absolute certainty. As a matter of fact, I can say with absolute certainty that it will not always go as you planned. There are margins of error in any plan. And so it's a matter of how you review and revise as you go along. What I will say, though, as far as the JDF is concerned, they are not unaccustomed to engaging in crisis management. They're trained so to do. They have a medical wing. They have been involved in the COVID response at the airports and other places. And I am confident that they can be and will be a critical component of just managing areas of the implementation. So that's one of the reasons why they are important to be first frontline vaccinated to get their jobs early, because the anticipation is that they'll be deployed to play an important role to increase the numbers as we go along.
All right, a couple more questions for you, Dr. Tufton, but we're at the break, so let me just take the break, ask our viewers to hold on. We'll be back with Dr. Tufton, have more on the vaccines issue later on in the program as well. Remember, our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. We're back in a moment.